37.
Huh?
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's just the usual thing, because if we do it something different, I think we might have a hard time with it.
What, 1, 2?
Yeah. You can do that?
Of course.
Okay.
I can't do it.
Yeah, he said he could do it.
I'm done. Tam brasika?
I think so.
I do it.
You do it. Someone else is-
Do it how you do it, and I'll follow you.
Parama, koruna, pahu, jana, anyway, I can't do it.
Sorry, that's why I was just going to do
I
it.
do it. I normally do it. I really do. But with
You're
everyone playing over there.
There's a translation, of course, but there's also a purport. You want to read the translation?
The two lords, Nitai Gaurachandra, are very merciful. They are the essence of all incarnations. The specific significance of these incarnations is that they introduced a process of chanting and dancing that is simply joyful. My dear brother, I request that you just worship Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda with firm conviction and faith. If one wants to be Krishna conscious by this process, one has to give up his engagement in sense gratification. One simply has to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, without any
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's fine.
Without any motive. My dear brother, just try and examine this. Within the three worlds, there is no one like Lord Chaitanya or Lord Nityananda. Their merciful qualities are so great that upon hearing them, even birds and beasts cry and stones melt. But Lochan Das regrets that I am entrapped by sense gratification. Since I have no attraction for the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, then Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, is punishing me by not allowing me to be attracted by this movement.
You want to say something?
What are we going to do about that?
Purport? We can read it too.
Is that what we should do?
Yeah? You want to read it?
Whatever you tell me to
Read it. It's fantastic.
It's one of my favorite.
Uh,
Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is a song by Lochan Das Thakur. Pahu means Lord, and Dvijan means two. Lochan Das Thakur declares that the two lords, Nitai Gaurachandra, Lord Nitai and Lord Chaitanya, are very merciful, parama koruna. Shab avatar shar shiromani. Avatar means incarnation, and Shab means all. They are the essence of all incarnations. The specific significance of these incarnations is that prosecuting their way of self-realization is simply joyful, kevala ananda kanda, for they introduced chanting and dancing. There are many incarnations, like Lord Ram and even Krishna, who taught Bhagavad Gita, which requires knowledge and understanding. But Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda introduced a process that is simply joyful. Simply chant and dance. Therefore, Lochan Das requests everyone, Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Nitai. My dear brother, I request that you just worship Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda with firm faith and conviction. Don't think that this chanting and dancing will not lead to the desired goal. It will. It is the assurance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that one will get all perfection by this process. Therefore, one must chant with firm faith and conviction. Vishvash Kori. But what is the process? The process is Vishayacharya, She Rashe Majia. If one wants to be Krishna conscious by this process, one has to give up his engagement in sense gratification. That is the only restriction. If one gives up sense gratification, it is sure that he will reach the desired goal. Mukhe bolo Hari Hari. One simply has to chant Hare Krishna, Hari Hari, without any motive of sense gratification. Deko Hare Bhai Tribhuvane Nai. Lord Lochandas Thakur says, my dear brother, you just try and examine this. Within the three worlds, there is no one like Lord Chaitanya or Lord Nityananda, because their merciful qualities are so great that they make even birds and beasts cry. What to speak of human beings? Actually, when Lord Chaitanya passed through the forest known as Jharikanda, the tigers, elephants, snakes, deer, and all other animals joined him in chanting Hare Krishna. It is so nice that anyone can join. Even the animals can join, what to speak of human beings. Of course, it is not possible for ordinary men to induce animals to chant, but if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could inspire animals to chant, at least we can encourage human beings to adopt this path of Hare Krishna mantra chanting. It is so nice that even the most stone-hearted man will be melted. Pashana means stone. It is so nice that even stone will melt. But Lochandas Thakur regrets that he is entrapped by sense gratification. He addresses himself, my dear mind, you are entrapped in this sense gratification process, and you have no attraction for chanting Hare Krishna. Since you have no attraction for the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, what can I say? I can simply think of my misfortune. Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, is punishing me by not allowing me to be attracted by this movement.
Would you like to say something? Sure.
Om Jana Tiran Hasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Vajnam Tathapi Japadapika.
Still a little bit. Go ahead. Here's my cup too.
There's a cup behind you.
Parama koruna Kevalananda Kanda. Such a nice thing that in this age we just have to chant Hare Krishna, dance, take prasadam, little philosophy, and Kevala Ananda Kanda. It's just a joyful path of self-realization. And this is presented by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu. Therefore, Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudrita Vishvash Kuri. Sudrita and Vishvash. Vishvash means faith, confidence. And Sudrit means firm, very strong faith and confidence. Vishaya Chariya Shairasham. This is to me, the key phrase. Vishaya means sense gratification. And Charya means giving up. These two things are incompatible. If we want to have a life of eat, drink, be merry, of Krishna consciousness, then we're fooling ourselves. To chase the absolute truth and chase illusion are incompatible projects. So if one wants to achieve that perfection, then Vishayachari, give up sense gratification. And Shairashe Majjiya, relish that taste of chanting Hare Krishna, Moke Bolo Hari Hari. It can be said that the two are part of a circular process. We can't expect that I'll give up all sense gratification and then I can chant Hare Krishna. And we may not also expect that without giving up sense gratification, I'll relish the essence of chanting Hare Krishna. But gradually, giving up something and taking something, giving up something, getting more taste for the holy name of Krishna. As I'm getting more taste, then losing taste for sense gratification. As I'm losing the taste for sense gratification, getting more taste for chanting Hare Krishna. Sujrita Vishvasha Kori. One may not be qualified in other respects, but if one has faith in the process, and faith in those who've given the process, then the result will come. Vishaya Charya Shairashe. Elsewhere it said, Vishaya Charya Kave Shuddha Bhaviman. When will I give up this spirit of sense enjoyment? And then my mind will be purified. And then I'll be able to see Vrindavan, then I'll be able to chant Hare Krishna. Giving up sense means giving up the spirit of sense enjoyment. Some sense gratification has to be there. We have to eat, we have to sleep. But not in the spirit of personal enjoyment, but in the spirit of Krishna consciousness. Dekore bhai tribhuvane, trubhavane nai, emona doila data, pashupaki jure, pashana vidre, shuni, jar gunakata. The history is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was wandering in the Charikanda, and the animals were chanting and dancing, the stones were in ecstasy. That's described here. But Lord Chandas doesn't think that he's qualified. Samsare Majjiya Rohila Poriya Shefari Nahila Vasha. It's hopeless for me. Apana karma punjaya. Because of my own karma, my own background of material attachment, my own background of sinful activities, my own endless history of trying to be independent from Krishna. I'm simply devoid of the attraction for the lotus feet of Gaur Nitai. And I think that therefore I'm being punished by Yamaraj. He's representing ourselves. That even if we have some desire to advance in Krishna consciousness, still this spirit of sense enjoyment is so persistent, so persistent. Let me enjoy it, let me enjoy it. And that spirit of enjoyment is a kind of punishment. Because we know that actually there's no enjoyment but still we're trying to enjoy. What is that? Janiya Shunya Vishakoinu. I know it's poison, I've heard it's poison, and still I'm drinking it. Janiya Shunya Vishakoinu. This is material life. We know, we've heard what it is, we know what it is, and still we say, well, anyway. Janiya Shunya Vishakoinu. Why apana parama? This is our material entanglement. But if we go on chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then we can hope that by the mercy of Kornitai, we'll be able to get the blessings of Krishna consciousness and actually relish the holy name of Krishna and forget about this illusory world of mind. Hare Krishna.
Ashram, what would you like to say? This purport?
Hare Krishna. We read the purport. Some of the words here are, in Bengali, words are quite interesting. This Emono Doyala Data, that is something that's repeated quite often by the singers, the poets, Locham and also what is the song?
Yamuna Dumak?
And that,
Samsari.
well, I'm thinking specifically of Nikai. How does it, being hit, he gives mercy. Well, the words escape me now. But basically reflecting on Jagai and Madai and how the evidence is there about the extraordinary character of Lord Nityananda, that even though he's attacked by these miscreants, Jagai and Madai, he's giving mercy. So this comparison is there that there's nowhere else we can find such depth of compassion as we find in Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, who enter into this world. They come here without any other arrangements to enjoy pastimes and leelas, only to deliver us. Krishna comes, he brings his entire entourage, he brings his gopis and gopas, and they enjoy pastimes and leela, and they please the devotees. But when Lord Chaitanya comes, he's only, his pastime is to give himself to the devotees and to give his mercy. So that is here, Amola Doyola Data. Where else can you find such compassion, such mercy? In Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda. And that compassion and mercy can melt stones. So there's some hope for us stone-like creatures whose hearts are encased with this steel that can be penetrated by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Something to that. Hare Krishna.
Something, this is my songbook, so I put a few things in here. And before I say a few words, I wanted to read just one very short thing and tell a little history behind it. It's a quote from Prabhupada from February 3rd, 1966. And from his diary, not the Jayadvaita diary, the diary he kept in New York. And I remember, I always tell this story because it was really, for me, this quote is very much connected to this song. How Lord Chaitanya is merciful that even can make the animals chant and dance. But the way I was introduced to this quote is when I went to the archives, Bhaktivedanta archives in, I can't remember what year it was. And I used to go there practically annually, and one devotee, Ranjit Prabhu, he used to share with me whatever new nectar he had received. And this particular visit, Ranjit Prabhu said to me, Maharaj, I've got something you might like to see. I said, what's that? And he said, well, Wali Mardan had the Prabhupada's journal, his diary, and he came to the archives and he actually gave it. After a long time we've been trying to get it. Would you like to see it? So I said, what kind of question is that? So he said, he reached into, he had this big metal cabinet, and he reached into the cabinet and pulled out the diary and said, here, this is his Prabhupada's diary. And this was before it was published, obviously, they just received it. So I said, can I look at it? And they said, yeah, go ahead. So I took it to the other room, and I just started reading through it, page by page. And I came on this quote, and it really struck me, this quote. And this is February 3rd, 1966. I wrote it down as soon as I saw it. Immediately wrote it down. And Prabhupada says, today there was a very nice demonstration of tape record Sankirtan by me. I think that must have been the Happening album. Was that possible? February 3rd, 1966? He did a recording. It was right after he had done a recording.
It's probably his own tape recording.
His own tape recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is before even ISKCON is incorporated. So
Well, oh yeah, that's right. It's before his incorporated. But listen to what he says here. He says, today was a very nice demonstration of a tape record Sankirtan by me. He says, it is all grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Haridas Thakur said that the transcendental sound of Harinam would even purify the hearts of birds and beasts. Today the statement of Thakur Haridas is corroborated. These Americans cannot even understand even a word's meaning of the Sankirtan, and yet they were so much attracted. He said, it is all Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's power. There is no credit for me. February 3rd, 1966. You know, this, anyways, when I first read it, you know, I said, "Hey, Ranjan, get a load of this, read this." I read it the other room. And I read it to him. And you know, this, of course, this has been corroborated here by Haridas Thakur's statement that even the birds, this transcendental sound of Harinam will purify even the hearts of birds and beasts. Today it's been corroborated, these American boys and girls. This is
He's giving us a little extra credit.
And the thing is, this is exactly the point that you're making. That, you know, that just as Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda appeared with only one purpose, which was to give. You know, it's so obvious that Prabhupada came, you know, with exclusive desire simply to give, without taking into any consideration. You know, just as was that in that song, he says that he gives that personal, when Nitai sees a tear welling in someone's eye upon chanting the name of Gora, he instantly gives his support to that person. Indeed, he bestows all divine opulences. He gives that person genuine realization of the pure teachings of Sri Krishna, as found in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. While displaying all this inconceivable mercy, he pays no attention to one's caste, material wealth, mundane knowledge, or physical ability. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually, especially in this song, but in other songs also, the song we sang the other day, Nadiya Gudruna Nityananda Bhajan, Shadavan, what is it? Shadavan, yeah. He said, oh, faithful persons. He specifically speaks about, in the marketplace of the holy name, that the only currency that can be accepted in the marketplace of the holy name is faith. And just as Lord Chandas Thakur describes in this song, Vishwasa Kori, Sujita Vishwasa Kori, that one must have firm conviction. Don't think that the two lotus feet of Lord Nityananda and the merciful lotus feet of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, don't think that they can't deliver you, they can't give mercy. Just be convinced, certainly, that you can get everything that you need by their mercy. And the same way in the marketplace of the holy name of the Lord, that the only requirement is faith. And therefore, those who are wholesalers, salesmen, those who come to distribute the holy name in the marketplace of the holy name of the Lord, their only interest in distributing the holy name, the pure holy name, is they're only interested in real currency. They're not interested in any counterfeit currency. In fact, even in the marketplace, the holy name of the Lord, it's described that one of the occupations for those who work in the marketplaces, they're supposed to check the currency to make sure it's real. You know, that if somebody comes in with counterfeit currency, then they're not allowed to, I mean, it's just, I experience this all the time in foreign countries, You give them $100 bill, the first thing they do is they hold it up to the light to make sure there's a silver strip in there. They're not going to accept it if it's counterfeit. You know? And the same way in the marketplace of the holy name, there are those who have been designated with the responsibility to make sure that people aren't coming in with counterfeit currency to purchase the pure holy name. You won't get it. So, therefore, the real currency is faith. And therefore what those who are distributing the holy name are looking for, they're not interested, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes here, pays no attention to one's caste, to one's material wealth, to one's mundane knowledge, to one's physical ability. These things are irrelevant criteria for being a candidate for the holy name of the Lord. Because the only thing that those who are genuine distributors of the holy name are looking for, the only thing they want is faith. That please take this process with faith. And then the mention is also made about, especially about Lord Nityananda, that Lord Nityananda is described to be so excessively merciful, because even in those who don't have faith, that by his method of distribution, he awakens that faith. That's why Lord Nityananda is considered to be so merciful, because, you know, as he would approach the Jagais and Madhais, and approach Jagai and Madhai, he was struck on the head, as you described. He was struck on the head, and Jagai and Madhai were definitely, you know, they were intent on causing him harm. Yet he was ready to give all his, as he told Lord Chaitanya, let me give all, whatever pious credits I have accumulated throughout my entire existence, let me give all these pious credits to, you know, to Jagai and Madhai. He was ready to give them. Why did he do that? Because he was a servant of Lord Chaitanya, and as a servant of Lord Chaitanya, in his mood of service to Lord Chaitanya, he wanted to prove that Lord Chaitanya was Patipavana, the most merciful incarnation of the Lord. He wanted to glorify Lord Chaitanya and saying, certainly if you deliver these two fallen souls, you will be recognized as Patipavana. And then therefore in his mood of service to Lord Chaitanya, he was immediately ready to forgive them for having struck him on the head, and he was ready to bestow all his mercy upon them, because Lord Chaitanya specifically told Jagai and Madhai that, well, specifically he told, I think it was Madhai, Jagai got mercy because Jagai is the one who stopped Madhai from striking him again. And when Lord Chaitanya heard that Jagai stopped Madhai from striking Lord Nityananda again, he became very compassionate upon him. Oh, you served my Nitai, you helped my Nitai, and really gave him his mercy, he embraced him, put his lotus feet on his head, and then when he became ecstatic upon receiving the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, then Madhai saw what had happened and said, wait a minute, what are you doing? You know, don't you know that we're like two peas in a pod? You're giving him mercy, but what about me? And he said, no, forget you. You struck Nitai on the head. How can I be merciful to you? Only if Nitai forgives you. You have to get his mercy. And then at that point, Nityananda became so merciful and was ready to not only forgive Madhai, but to deliver him. So the point is that Lord Nityananda's method of delivering the holy name was in itself awakening faith, because when people see such compassion, when people see such an intent, single-minded desire to serve the order of Lord Chaitanya, and without, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes in his Vaishnava Siddhanta Mala, he describes that when the devotees go out, the patrolmen go out into the streets to distribute the holy think the example is given how Lord Nityananda awakens faith. I've read somewhere it's like that. It's like giving a sample. You know, it's like people go out into the streets sometimes when they're marketing a particular product. It was very common. I remember in the former Soviet Union when communism fell, I saw all these people out in the streets giving out free samples of these products as the Westerners were coming in. You know, but why did they do it? Why did these companies have people out in the streets giving small free samples? Because they give it a small sample because they want people to try it to see what it's like, and then after you've gotten your free sample, they want you to come back and to purchase the product, you know, to get the big container. So the analogy is given that Lord Nityananda gave out free samples to everybody. You know, he gave out a free sample to everybody because he was trying, by his method of distribution, he was inducing people to become attracted to Lord Chaitanya. And because he would cry, tears in his eyes, falling on the ground, begging others, please chant Krishna's, Lord Chaitanya's name, chant Krishna's name, worship Krishna, make Krishna your life. Because he was ready to do that and undertake any risk necessary to do it, even to the extent where you know, Haridas Thakur criticized Lord Nityananda for being like a madman because of his behavior towards Jagai and Madhai. He said, two of us are going to be killed today. and then Nityananda said, what do you blame me? Don't blame me. Look within your own heart. It was Lord Chaitanya. It was his order. And he's in your heart, he's in my heart. He's the one who's to blame. Don't blame me. He's the one who gave the order to go out to everybody and to introduce everybody to this chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So, by their method of distribution, they awakened faith, and because a little faith was awakened, then, as is described here, Lord Nityananda, his only interest in giving the holy name of the Lord to others is if he saw just a little tear well in somebody's eyes when chanting the Lord's name, then he was very much inclined to bestow all spiritual realizations and all opulences upon that person. So they teach by their example, as the Lord appeared. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, as the merciful Lords, appeared to come specifically to teach by their example what the method of distributing the holy name was. They came to give without expecting anything in return for their distribution, except only thing that they wanted to see is that people would develop faith. They didn't want anything else. They didn't want their money. They didn't want their wealth. They didn't want their physical strength. They didn't want their high positions. And that's the point where Lochan Das Thakur is describing here. One should simply give up sense gratification. Prabhupada specifically says giving up sense gratification means giving up material motive. That's right here. I think that's what he said, isn't it? Was it right here? Or was it Arkabe Nitai Chanda Koruna Habe? Some sort of a... What is it? Let me find it. The songbook. Yes. He says, and Baju Baju Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudhida Vishwasa Kori Vishaya Chariya Seira Se Majia Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari. He says, my dear brother, I request that you just worship Lord Chaitanya Nityananda with firm conviction and faith, if one wants to be Krishna conscious, by this process, one has to give up his engagement in sense gratification. One simply has to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. That's all it says. Without any motive. Without any motive. Just chant without any motive, that's all I'm saying. Not asking for anything except what's out without any motive means there's service. There's service. And then of course, if we're going to talk about that motive, then I can't resist reading the quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta on that particular topic. It's one of my favorite quotes from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur about chanting for service. Amritavani, here it is. Where he answers the question, how should we chant the Lord's holy names? And he says, pure devotees do not chant the Lord's names to counteract sinful reactions, to accumulate piety, to attain heavenly pleasures, to mitigate famine, devastating epidemics, social unrest, disease, civil strife, or to obtain wealth or an earthly kingdom. Since the Lord is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to ask Him to fulfill our wishes is to treat Him as our servant. This is an offense. Therefore, calling the Lord's names for any reason other than to attain His devotional service is useless. Jesus Christ told us not to take the Lord's name in vain. However, this does not mean that we do not need to always chant the Lord's names while sleeping, awake, eating, or enjoying happiness. To chant the Lord's name, begging for His service, is not a useless activity, it is our only duty. But to make a show of chanting for some other purpose, in other words, to fulfill our own desires, is useless. We should not take to the chanting of the Lord's names uselessly. We should not chant to attain religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. Instead, we should always chant to attain the Lord's service.
Is that in database?
No. No, it's in Amritavani. Yeah, that's where I found it, Amritavani. It's good. It requires, it may require some explanation, but especially sometimes people hear this immediately think useless. Well, I thought, even if one chants with offense, it's not useless. So how is it here? It's being described as useless. My understanding it is that for achieving the actual goal of chanting, any other purpose is, and for any other, it's useless that one cannot achieve the actual goal of chanting. It's useless for that. And I quote the verse from the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam. I think it's from Devahuti. She says that anyone whose work does not elevate him to religious life, anyone whose religious ritualistic performances do not raise one to renunciation, and anyone who is situated in renunciation that doesn't lead to devotional service to the Supreme Lord is considered to be like a dead body, although breathing. So in this verse, and Prabhupada specifically states in the purport, now you might think, well, religious life, that's auspicious, to be or to work towards religious life, or what to speak of, to come to the platform of renunciation. That's us, that's us. But no, in fact, the claim is it's useless, and unless one comes to devotional service to the Lord, because it's not a final resting place for the soul. The only final resting place for the soul, eternal soul, is to be situated in his constitutional nature as an eternal servant of Krishna. So if it doesn't come to devotional service, then it's useless. So in the same way, if one chants with some material motive, if one wants to chant the holy name of the Lord for any purpose other than service, it's useless. Because the final resting place for the living being is to be eternally engaged in service. And if you don't come to that point, Swami Evi Kevalam, Namas Fanushtata Pungsam Vishvakseno Katasuyat, Otpariyaditira Tim Swami Evi Kevalam. If all of your duties that you perform doesn't awaken an attraction for hearing and chanting about Krishna, then it's a useless waste of time. So, without motive, it means that we do it, we chant the holy name of the Lord, we distribute the holy name of the Lord, we speak the glories of the holy name of the Lord, we tell others about Krishna, we give Krishna consciousness as service. If we do it in a mood of service, that's giving up sense gratification. That's how to give up sense gratification. And therefore, as Jayadvaita Maharaj said, it to be like circular. Well, if I have to give up sense gratification in order to achieve the goal, then how do I give up sense gratification? But devotional service is so powerful that akabai nitai chande koruna habe sangsara bhasa mora kabai tuchi habe, as Narottam Das Thakur describes. When will I have Lord Nityananda's mercy? Because only if I get Lord Nityananda's mercy will I be able to give up sense gratification. I won't be able to give it up any other way. I have to get mercy. So this is how to get Lord Nityananda's mercy, is by distributing, serving without any motive except to please. And then, so Lord Nityananda is so very merciful because he's given us an opportunity to serve. He's given us the holy name of the Lord. He hasn't taken into consideration any of our material qualifications. He's come only to give. He's ready to, by his method of distributing, to awaken our faith. And if we have a little faith, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes in his Godruma Kalpatavi, he says if you awakens just a little faith, and then what happens with a little faith, you can go back and purchase, with that faith that you have, you can purchase more faith. You've got something to purchase, because Lord Nityananda is so merciful that when you give a little faith for the holy name of the Lord, then he gives you back, so you can come back and purchase more. Who does that? No businessman is going to make a profit. Every time somebody comes and makes him a payment, he just says, okay, all right, I'll give you back, now you can come back and buy some more from me. So if we give a little faith, he's ready to help us to become qualified to advance in our faith. Faith, vishwasa kori, faith. We have to have faith, and firm faith, vishwasa kori, in the holy name, in the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, because we should understand that without mercy, there's no other way. Nasteva, nasteva, nasteva. There's no other way. I have to become somehow, someday, somehow or other, I have to become a receptacle of that mercy. And I have to have complete faith that I can get it someday. And that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur also describes in Bhakti Loka, where he describes that a sadhaka, a devotee, he has to be very patient in obtaining the Lord's mercy. And he describes this kind of patience the devotee has to have, is that he has to be prepared to serve the Lord with the conviction that I'll get the Lord's mercy either now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, or 100 lifetimes from now. I'll go on serving the Lord because I know I'll get His mercy. Sooner or later I'll get it. And I'll never give up serving Him. And he says this type of patience is required to get the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, that requires certainly strong conviction. Vishwasakori, to go on. Strong conviction that yes, the mercy will come, and without it, I cannot advance. Therefore, devotee constantly prays for that mercy. Please be merciful to me. If you are not merciful to me, then I have no other hope. Because I certainly can't do it alone. And there's more I could say, but anyways, it's a little something. Some questions?
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, to expect the mercy from the Lord. So how it is different than the motive of expecting something from the Lord?
What was the question?
How is it different from expecting something? In other words, putting a condition. But the point that I just made is that the devotee doesn't put that condition. Expects the mercy, but he leaves it up to the Lord when to give it. But still he expects it. And the Lord, knowing exactly, knows when to give it. And the devotee is willing to serve the Lord, even if he doesn't. And even when the devotee gets mercy, that's because if you read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's a very wonderful description by Sanatana Goswami which describes the characteristic of a devotee. The three specific characteristics of every Vaishnava is they always think they're not qualified for mercy. They think they have no love for Krishna, and they think they don't do anything for him. That's how Vaishnava. And if you read the whole story of Narada Muni, when he goes one Vaishnava to the next and the next, to the next, he goes to all the different higher categories of Vaishnavas. Every Vaishnava he goes to, he was looking for the person who was the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. And every person he went to, they said, they immediately said, I heard that you are the recipient of Krishna's mercy. And they said, no, I'm not qualified for Krishna's mercy, and I don't do anything for him. I've never, well, this is all I do. It's irrelevant. And each Vaishnava he went to, when they described that how they didn't do enough service, they had no love for the Lord, and then they always pointed to, but he has it, so you go to him. So then he goes to the next Vaishnava, and Narada Muni goes to the next one. He said, I've been told that you are the recipient, you're the greatest recipient. No, not me. I have no question. And then he goes to Brahma, to Prahlad, to Hanuman. Then he goes to Dwarka, and then he goes to so many. Then he goes to Pandavas. Then he goes to Uddhava, and Uddhava's no, and then they all go together and they look at the residents of Vrindavan and how they feel their ecstatic symptoms of love, how the gopis and Mother Jasoda, and how their feelings are that their love is so completely unconditional, feeling And then he comes to understand who are the highest recipients of Krishna's mercy. But in each and every one of them, it's revealed through his journey how a Vaishnava thinks, that each and every one are qualified in their own right as Vaishnavas and pure. Because they have that quality, that they don't think that I'm qualified for that mercy. But they're always convinced that someday they will get it. And they always point to somebody else who has it. Therefore they remain convinced that it exists, it's possible. They always, because they always say, oh, he has mercy. I don't, but he has it. So maybe someday I'll get it. In this way, this is how a Vaishnava thinks. So, but a Vaishnava knows, without mercy, what hope? But he never places that as a condition for service. Never places it as a condition for service. Because he's willing to go on serving the Lord. Always expecting someday that the Lord will give his mercy whenever he so desires. And of course, when a devotee has that complete conviction, such a strong conviction, then the Lord can immediately, understanding the heart of the devotee, he can reduce those thousands of births to just a few moments, like he did with Mukunda. When Mukunda specifically asked Srivas to ask Lord Chaitanya, when will he be merciful to me and give me his darshan? Because Lord Chaitanya was, during the Mahaprakash Lila, Lord Chaitanya was giving his mercy to all the devotees one by one. It's a long pastime to tell the whole thing. It'll take a long time. But during the Mahaprakash Lila, the Shataprahira Bhava, Lord Chaitanya was manifesting his ecstatic mood. Although he came as a devotee, he was revealing his divinity to his devotees, and he was giving his mercy and bestowing benedictions on each and every one of them. And one by one he was calling his devotees and telling them, especially revealing to them something very intimate about their past. And because many of these devotees had appeared in the world before the Lord had appeared. So he was showing his mercy to them by showing them how he was merciful to them previous to his appearance. And when he called Haridas Thakur, he said to Haridas Thakur, you were beaten through 22 marketplaces, he attempted to beat you and to kill you, and you didn't feel any pain. Do you know why you didn't feel any pain? You didn't feel any pain because I lied down on your back and I took all the blows myself. How did Lord Chaitanya know that? He wasn't even present. So he was saying that I came personally to protect you. To Ganga Das, Ganga Das was personally called before Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya told Ganga Das, do you remember when you were, when the Muslims were attacking the village, and you went to the banks of the Ganges, and you wanted to cross the river, and you were thinking of your family, and then you were praying that, what can I do? I'm completely dependent on the Lord, and do you remember that a boatman came and picked you up in the boat and carried you across the river? I was that boatman. He told that to God, and then Ganga Das just fell on the ground. Such mercy. He was just in complete ecstasy. He was calling his devotees one by one.
So the Lord puts him in that situation to...
So then there came time for Mukunda. Mukunda was saying, when will he call me? And Lord Chaitanya said, oh, that Mukunda, he's just a rascal. I'll not give him my mercy. He comes into the association of Vaishnavas, and he pretends to be a Vaishnava, but actually associates with impersonalists. And one hand is like carrying a club, and the other hand he's carrying a lotus flower. And I don't know which one he's going to hit me with first. So, Lord Chaitanya was like chastising. He said, Mukunda, forget it. And then Mukunda was standing behind the curtain because he wouldn't